I like the book. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I hope nobody heard that. Anyway.
They probably
Welcome
do.
back to the show. We have with us Tim Bryant, and for those people that have watched this show, it's been a couple years since you've been on the show, and you had written a book called
Men of Oak.
Men of Oak, and I was telling him I still have that book at home, and that didn't deter you from writing another book, did it?
No.
Did you think that was the only book you'd ever write?
At first I did, true, but once I started selling it and people started reading it, they asked me when a second book was coming out, so I had to sit down and write a second one.
So. Now the first book was based on accounts of men coming into a town, saving a church.
Right after the Civil War.
After the Civil War. Are you fascinated with that time period?
That time period I am. It seemed like it was a time when a lot of the country was in Reconstruction right after the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And it was the Old West kind of time period, you know, of honor and, you know, men treating women with respect, and families, you know, were very important. And the little churches were really important in all of the little small towns.
That was a microcosm of a community.
Right, it was a community
community
center,
building,
right.
Yes.
Right, they used it for everything.
Yeah.
So this book is kind of centered around a small town on the White River. And I did a lot of research about the White River and the steamboats that used to come up the White River from Memphis all the way to Branson. Mm-hmm.
So the book is fact.
Right, I did a lot of
researching,
a lot of researching, and kind of become an amateur historian for the area, I suppose, through the years of reading and studying that. And in fact, the Baxter County history book by Mary Ann Messick was one that I had read a number of times, and got a lot of good information from that, you know. Mm-hmm. But I do like the time period right after Civil War. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I grew up watching the old Westerns, you know, Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and that kind of stuff, so I kind of tried to make my books have that feel, you know, where there's a good guy, he's going to save the girl, he's going to ride off into the sunset when it's all said and done.
Which you don't know who the good guy is on movies and television anymore. I mean,
sometimes
the bad guy,
sometimes
he's more sympathetic, and people.
And even the good guys, sometimes it seems like nowadays are always flawed. Mm-hmm. You know, there's some terrible secret in their past or something. But in the Old West, those kind of stories and movies, the good guy was really a good guy. Mm-hmm. Right. You know, a stand-up guy that took care of his family and friends, and was always there to help, and was always a little bigger and a little stronger and shot a little straighter than all the bad guys. Mm-hmm.
There's some spiritual influence as well in there, right?
Right. In fact, the book is actually just recently started. ChristianBooks.com picked it up, and they're selling it too. It's actually about a preacher who travels from England. He was a colonel in the Union Army, and he ended up in England after the war, and then he travels from England by ship to New Orleans and gets on a steamboat, comes up the Mississippi and then the White River, because he has a job to become a pastor at a little church on the White River. And so along the way, he comes across a lady and her baby that a group of men, bad men, were trying to capture her and kidnap her, and so he saves them. There was only 12 of them, so between him and his two dogs, he was able to.
It was an even match, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was able to, you know, take care of the situation.
So he's the hero.
And then as the story goes, I tried to put a little twist. The lady that he saves and her baby, her husband was the captain of the ship that he sailed on from England to New Orleans.
Okay. So
not to give away too much of the story, but I tried to tie a lot of things together, you know.
Now, do you sit up late at night thinking about how, and then these things just kind of come to you?
I write a lot of little things down on little notes in a little book, and, you know, ideas that I think would be a good story. Or I'll read something like in this book to kind of get me in the mood for the way they talked and the way that they acted back then. I read a lot of Civil War letters that men wrote home to their families.
And the English is different.
Right, it was different. And when I started reading those letters, that's how I seen that the English was a lot different.
So you gather all your research, and then when you sat down and wrote this, like you did your first book, did you just sit down and write all the way through, or did it take you some time?
It took me a while. The first book I had 3, maybe 4 chapters written, and I sent it off to a publisher, and a year or 2 later they said they wanted to publish it.
Oh,
then I thought, well, I guess I'll have to read the rest of the book. So I had to sit down and, push myself to write the rest of the book. I tell my wife I work better under pressure anyway. But this one, I just had the idea, and the story just kind of unfolded as I sat down and started writing. And all the little things that I had written down, I would pull back and
Kind
look
of
at
compile them together.
until I got them all together.
now have you done book signings yet here in this area?
Yeah, I've done a few for this one already, and like I have a thing going with Orsolin's Farm Store here in Mountain Home, and when it first came out, that was the first place that I went.
Okay.
Because these books fit in good with a farm store.
Oh, absolutely.
So how can someone purchase this?
Yeah.
Well, of course, they're on Amazon, but they can also go to christianbook.com. They can like me on Facebook, and I'm going to be actually doing a book signing at the Boone County Library the 19th at 5:30, doing a little event about where an author, it's called Author Talks, and selling books there. And then on the 21st, I'll be at the Hillbilly Cook-Off in Lakeview.
Okay.
So, and Barnes & Noble carries it. So, but if they message me on Facebook, I'm pretty easy to find in Mountain Home.
Can you sell it to them direct?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you see another one coming behind this one?
I think so. I actually do have one started in kind of an outline, and it's going to be in the 1970s. So, because in this book, it's a standalone story, but the main character is kin to the main character in the first book. But you don't have to read the first book for this book.
Right.
It's not
Two
necessarily a
different stories.
sequel.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you read this
But it's
book and you've
related.
read that one, then
Yes.
you'll recognize some
All
of the
right,
characters.
some names and characters and everything.
So I'm going to jump about 60 years for the third book, I
Well,
think, or 70.
One thing good about what you do is you can put it on a shelf, and 100 years later, when you're gone,
Right.
it can still be, the imagination can be sparked. And do you have a satisfaction knowing that's going to happen?
With my kids and grandkids, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because I've got 6 grandkids now. And I actually made 2 of my dogs famous. They're on the back here.
Okay.
Because they're in the book, and their names.
Okay. Those are the 2 dogs that help the good
Right.
guy win, right?
Their names are Bill and Mary Lou, and they're Walker Coon dogs.
And that's who you named them directly in the book.
Right.
Same
And I was
names,
going to
okay.
give them. I was going to change their names
Yeah.
to protect the innocent, but I decided to. I like those names, and
They
so
didn't bark
fit.
at you about that,
They
so
don't.
you
Yeah.
just
They bark
went
a
with
lot.
it.
Yeah, they barked a lot.
So
Well, Tim, we appreciate you coming by. Anytime
Thank you
that
for
you want
having
to
me.
promote anything that you do, you're always welcome. And I thank you
you.
for calling me last week. And if you want to know more about Tim, your Facebook, how do they, is it Timothy?
just Timothy Bryant.
Timothy Bryant.
Yeah, they can like me or send me a message. And
Okay.
I actually have 2 pages. One is an author page, and then the other is just my personal. But
Okay.
the personal seems to get more attention.
I
Well, I
than the
look
other.
forward to reading
Yeah.
this. You
Yeah.
do too, don't you?
I do too.
Adding it to your collection.
Yes. Thanks so much, Timothy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Our last guest is waiting for us, and his name is Seth Odegaard. He's with the L.C. Sammons Youth Center. And not sure what he's going to talk about, but I'm sure there's some great things going on at the Youth Center that you may want to know about. Stay with
No
us.
doubt.